For anybody coming on, if you can hear my voice, if you would, you should be muted and video off probably, I believe. And so you can do that yourselves or we'll do it. And we're gonna give it a few minutes to get started. I do wanna talk to staff who are on real quickly. Just FYI, we got a message saying that we can't have more than 100 people on here. And this meeting was meant for community. We are taping it, and so you get to see all of it. But I think we're going to need the spaces because we are hearing there are community members who are hoping to get on. So we can either, I think the easiest if you just do us a favor of logging out and we'll get the video to you. And I'm happy to do this exact same thing for our staff separately anytime. So if you could help us out with logging out and or I don't know, Pam, are you, by the way, let me introduce to you Leslie and Pam. You should see their pictures there. Pam is our communications analyst and she's the person that you actually generally receive messages from the district from, as well as Leslie Maines, who's our chief information officer or public information officer and community engagement officer. And they are going to help moderate this. So let's take another just couple minutes to get things set. Pam and Leslie, how's it looking in terms of numbers?
Right now we're back at 100. Jeff is trying to get in. I think we're getting better here.
And again, for those of you on, we're trying to figure out how to change the setting to allow more than the 100, but haven't quite figured that out. But we might just have to redo this very soon. And I know we plan to do one next week anyway, right?
Correct.
Okay. So for those of you just joining, again, hoping this is primarily community members, not staff at this moment, because we need the space. And this was intended for primarily our community to have some time with me. Also, if you are, if your video is on, if you, and or audio, please mute and or get off of video mode for the beginning, if you could. If you have a question, we're going to allow you to ask that in a bit by way of chat. Sorry, have a message from, Leslie, I have a message from Sylvia about the 100 people. Do you mind checking in with her for me?
Yeah. Is that who was just calling me?
So again, please turn video off. Stay on mute for right now, everybody. Wow, great turnout. Glad to see you all here. I'll get started in just a second. Okay, we did have some board members that were going to join us, but they are logging out slowly because they want to give space for our community members as well. Pam, is there any way of noting how many people are trying to get on at this point? And community members, there are a certain number of you that are, you have your video going. If you could please take that off? Or
So I just got in after trying, and I know there are some parents who are getting in and not getting in.
Hi, Allie. Is this
Hi.
Allie? Hi, I can tell your voice. We understand that. So we are trying to bypass the 100-person number, which we may not be successful with. So we're asking staff to log off. We are videotaping this. So if you're getting parents out there, if you're getting notes from people saying that they're not able to get on, and just let them know that we can send out or make available a video later today. Seeing that it's our first chat with Dr. Baker, we will improve over time.
If it helps you to know, the same thing happened to Julie Lithcott-Hames of How to Raise an Adult last week when she hosted a Zoom. She got kicked out with 100, it took them 15 minutes, but they were able to up it to 1,000, and she recorded it and sent it out. So you're not alone in the tech issues of getting up and running with these.
Well, great. Okay, thank you. So Craig, I think we'll turn it over to you.
okay, we do have a couple people that still have their videos going. If you are able to turn those off. And I'll dive in. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here. Sorry for the timing issues there, but I think we're okay now, and we will just have to send this out separately. I want to start just by thanking everybody in our community for helping us through this difficult time. We're all going through learning pains right now in terms of how to host a meeting like this, or how to run classrooms, how to interact when we're not supposed to be interacting in person. And so I just, again, I thank you, because I know you're going through the same sort of learning pains as we are. So many of you are trying to work at home while helping your children learn, and our teachers and other staff are doing exactly the same, working from home, trying to figure out, how do I teach other children when I'm also helping my child with mine, and how do I make a life that I never expected when I became a teacher 20 years ago, let alone when I started this school year, or even just a month ago when we did not think we would be closing school. So things have shifted quickly, and it's a complicated situation for everybody. I just want to acknowledge that and share my appreciation for everyone's patience and understanding. In case you don't know it, I'm Craig Baker, Superintendent of Schools. Maybe I should have started there. Again, you'll see on your screen, Pam and Leslie, they are helping moderate things today. And they're going to have you have your video off and sound off for a little bit. The chat function is turned off as well, I believe. Is that right? For now? Yeah. So we're not.
People are chatting me directly right now.
Okay. So we will open that up, because we're going to use that in just a little bit. I'm going to take about 15 minutes to try to respond to all of the questions I've received so far. And there were so many, I can't possibly address them all, but I think I can generically give some broad responses that will help. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. But also, it's just a time to hear from you. I suspect there will be questions that I won't necessarily know exactly how to answer right now, but I will walk away with a list of things to figure out and get back to you, whether in written form or at our next meeting, which I think we'll have next Tuesday at this same time. So yeah, looking forward to gathering your thoughts and perspectives, and again, might not respond to everything, but we'll get back to you. And I do want to say that, interestingly, I think we had about 80 comments from community before the meeting, and really half of them were very positive and thankful, appreciative comments, and even people who had suggestions or questions and some concerns, they generally you all started with some very positive comments about our teachers and leadership and everybody trying her best. So thank you for that. So some of your questions, I have to say, well, I'm not going to address today because they're really better answered by your school principal or teachers for your kids. And I can't say what all of those were, but at this moment in time, I do want to clarify that in spite of some of the comments that were made, all teachers are engaging with their students now. And if they are not, you really need to reach out to the principal, please, and to that teacher, and say that the understanding is that there is that expectation that all schools, all classrooms have contact with teachers at this time and assignments, etc. So for those who responded that that is not happening, please, please, please reach out to your principal. She or he will want to hear from you about that, I am certain. Let's see what else. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. So a few questions that were common to many of you, and I won't answer right now simply because we don't have an answer yet to it. Because we're in the throes of it. I do think maybe by next meeting we can answer these. So those included, what about math placement and assessments and grading? Those came up a lot, and those are matters that we are addressing right now internally. We're trying to figure them out. We will have answers, and we will have a plan that does not harm anybody. If, for example, if your child should be placed in a particular math placement as if we were not in shelter in place as we are right now, or distance learning, it is not going to change that. I just want to make that clear. We just have to figure out what the process is, and we are working on that, and we'll have an answer to that soon. People had questions about putting curricula online for the year, and some schools have, or classrooms have done that, and others have not. But that is something you can address directly with your principal or teacher. And I understand that you want to see where we're headed so you can help support your children, and that's great. And you can get that better through your school. And then 8th grade graduation, I know, is a question for a lot of people. We're working on that. Since we don't even know the end time for this, which I'll talk about in a second, it's a little bit hard for us to say right now what we're doing with 8th grade graduation. Again, please reach out to the principal. So before I get to the specific questions, there are a couple of questions about, do we have a plan? And I think that's a fair question. And the answer is yes, we have a plan as best we can. And I just want to remind people that this is a fluid moment in time for us. And we are iterating as we go because nobody expected to be in this situation. It is not easy for a district to, especially as large as ours, over 17,000 students, to just turn on a dime and say, okay, we're going to do everything that we normally do in a classroom. We'll do it online. I have many friends who've developed online learning, and they take years to do it. It does not happen overnight, and that's true for us. But we're going to make it happen, and just know that we are working on this in phases. We do have a plan, and at the same time, things change. So let me address, there's 4 big topics I'm going to address quickly here, and then we'll open it up. The first is a lot of questions around timing and the likelihood of extending school closures. And my answer there is going to be, we started this whole thing with a first phase, which was just a couple of weeks ago, thinking that we were going to be closed for 3 weeks. And so a lot of our planning was around, well, how do we get through those 3 weeks? And it was within about a week of that, of knowing that we were closing, that we realized that, this is likely to go longer than those 3 weeks. So while we've been planning to start up in phase 1 of providing online learning experiences, we simultaneously were learning, oh boy, we better start planning for the long haul. So that's where we are, and that's why schools are experiencing it differently. Some schools were able to move a little quicker than others. Some classrooms had been doing some online learning already and were able to more quickly move, et cetera. So we are in that phase right now of change. Now, we changed to already knowing that we're closed at least until May 1. And honestly, we just don't know if it's going to go beyond that. And so our phase 2 that we're gearing up for is more ongoing in-depth learning, distance learning, more contact of our educators with parents to the degree possible. And you will be seeing, for those who haven't seen more ramping up, you will be seeing that going forward. And we are in the middle of designing what that looks like in case it's not only just all the way to May 1, but now what if it's to the end of the school year? So that's where we are right now. There have been questions about spring break. That's a really tough one for me to answer for those who are saying, can't you just cancel it? We do have, knowing like where are people going to go, but the truth is we do have families, we do have staff that were planning on it. We do have negotiated agreements on the schedule with our staff, and they do have a right to that week off that is the spring break, et cetera. We worked with the high school district and with Sunnyvale district as well, and all of us are in agreement to do the same thing because we have overlap of students and what have you. So it really, at this point, we are reverting to our spring break, and there's not a ton we can do other than provide more learning experiences through our online learning. On our website, we have a whole bunch of learning tools for people, and that's going to be the best we can do because people are entitled to that right now. Let's see here. There's questions about will we add instructional time next year to make up for time lost for our students, and that's one where we don't really know. If we were to do that, it would cost us quite a bit of money to do that, to hire people to do the extra time. And I don't know that the state plans to pay for that. And I think everybody knows the tight budget that we're running on already. And we will suffer some great budgetary losses already just based on what we're having to do now. So it's a difficult situation for us. And the idea of extending next year, if I would suspect that if the state is somehow paying for it, that is certainly something we will be considering. But I at this moment in time, I cannot see how we can do that, but we'll certainly keep considering it. So let's see. Let me see here. I put here in my notes that I would say that by far the most feedback I received from parents and questions were about, students really wanting to have FaceTime with teachers and how critical that is, and that, this notion of providing digital assignments is not the same as a digital learning experience. So, and I agree with that. And that is something we have to figure out, is how do we maximize the ability of teachers to provide for an online learning experience, which is not like a classroom experience in some ways. The interaction will be different. And for a teacher, when you're trying to figure out in the classroom when a child needs individual help, you have it happen in the moment while you keep on teaching, and that becomes a little bit harder through an online learning experience. And so I know teachers are working on that. They're trying to figure it out. And I think that so many of them have done an amazing job of connecting with families already. And for, in some cases, I think some teachers are still trying to figure out how to manage that. So I ask for your patience with it. Reach out to them and talk to them about it. Reach out to the principal, try to figure out if you feel like your child is really needing something different. Every child learns differently. And the idea that we're going to somehow have one model that works for everyone, just, we know better. That's not going to work. And so we need to figure this out. And I know that that's important. I do believe in phase 2 as we're moving into that. After this week, I believe you'll see more and more of that interactive experience, which is so critical to a good learning experience. I do want to address head on some of the rumors out there and comments people make about, everywhere else, the teachers are teaching a full day, all day with the kids for a 6-hour period from, morning on, just like in the regular classroom. There may be some online, especially in private schools, they may be providing some things like that in which they basically pay for that sort of an experience. But it simply isn't true. I talked to superintendents all across the country, certainly across the state and locally, and we are all in very similar kind of situations with pockets in which some classes are doing certain things and others are doing other. And I will tell you, a lot of the comments I got were, it's amazing how great my teachers are doing. My teacher has, for all 3 of my kids, has been online, has done this, has done that. And right under it is a message saying, my child hasn't even heard from my teacher. So I just want to note that there's a difference between, we hear stories about other districts and what they're doing, but those other districts have people working there who have said, why can't we, and parents saying, why can't we do it more like Cupertino is doing it? And so I don't think the comparisons help us in a way. It's not, I don't think they're accurate. They aren't backed by data that suggests that things are really hugely different. And I know that there are some places doing great work, and I think we're doing some. In fact, I'll tell everybody that we were featured in the ACSA, that's the Association of California School Administrators, as one of about a dozen school districts with amazing online presence in terms of the learning hubs that hopefully you've seen at all your sites. I encourage you to look at those because staff have been doing an outstanding job of putting those up. And so I do want to say I have great respect for our staff and all the work they've put out there, and we're learning. And there are some teachers who admittedly, they'll say, yeah, I'm still struggling to figure out how to do this. This is not what I signed up to do, so I'm going to learn. And we need to give them that time. Again, if you feel your child is not receiving something that you'd like to have, reach out directly to your principal or to that teacher directly and talk about that with them. That's going to be the best thing to do. Distance learning, I have a ton of things on that. I don't want to spend a ton more time talking at you, but there's been so many comments made here. And again, please know that teachers, both personally and professionally, have had to have enough time to prepare for distance learning. Personally, they're going home, many of them, to their children trying to, or they are home, sheltered with their children, trying to figure out how to teach, be a professional, at the same time helping them do their work. They're going through those same kind of experiences as we are. And so they have needed the added time just to get prepared to provide what they have so far, let alone what they will be ramping up as we move forward. So both personally and professionally, they've had to do a lot. I've talked about all of this, trying to move from digital learning to away from just having digital assignments to digital learning. That is where we're headed in this second phase as we move forward. Consistency, I do think, is an issue for us in the district. I don't think we're alone. My colleagues around the county have said similarly. It's really hard, especially for large districts like ours, to just figure out how all of the, we have over 800 teachers. a lot of our colleagues that are doing this work, they have only a fraction of that. So just know that it is really hard to get everybody on board, but we are getting there. And I think we are seeing certainly more and more consistency across all the schools. That is something we need to work on for sure. There's questions here about why certain platforms, why not others, and why can't we use Zoom, I would say has been a huge question. And Zoom is okay for these adult kind of gatherings and certain other ones, but for classroom settings, perhaps you've read, there are some questions still about protecting privacy and other issues around just safety for our students. And many of the districts out there are having the same situation where we're not totally comfortable yet just diving in terms of classroom interactions and our ability to protect the privacy, safety of what is online with them. In fact, you may have seen there have been some pretty well-known cases of Zoom bombing where some inappropriate things have happened through that. And so we think we'll get on top of it. I personally, I've been using Zoom since they first arrived 10 years or so ago. And I am a fan, but at the same time, we're going to protect the safety of our students right now, and we'll see where we head in the near future on that. That is the main reason we use the Google Hangout, simply because it's a part of the G Suite, the Google Suite that we have. That is most common among the 31 school districts in Santa Clara County. That is similarly the number one being used for all these reasons, although some have used Zoom as well a bit, but that was their choice. Let's see, will there be more online interaction? My answer is yes. I think I addressed that already. Sorry, just a couple more here, everybody, and then I'll open up. What else? Then there were some miscellaneous questions about kids needing more physical education and social emotional learning, and we need to worry also about wellness, and just know that we agree 100%, and we do want to make sure that we are providing those. So before I open up, the only other thing I would say is that there are a lot of questions that have been asked that I would say require a personal response, and I will be asking my staff, principals, and at the district level to reach out to parents who had questions that were submitted around what about students with special needs? What about my child who has a very different learning mode or is ADHD, etc. There are a lot of special questions like that that are very important and relevant, and I want to make sure to get you connected with people who can help answer those very specifically to your child. So if you can be patient on that, and I'll make sure to assign that to someone. And then also there are a lot of you who are just saying you could use help with knowing how you can help your child learn, and how do I do my work and oversee my children's learning at the same time. Just know we hear you. I mean, I think about this all the time, and I understand how difficult that is. I do have a son who's still in high school, and I have some of that going on, but he's older and he can take care of himself, and I get that it's really different when you have, I had a message from a teacher, I believe yesterday, saying, I'm a single parent and I have a toddler at home, and I'm just really struggling trying to figure out how to make it happen. And just, I ask for your continued understanding on that, but also I know you all are having that exact same, many of you are having that same experience. So we hear you and appreciate hearing from you on that. Okay, so that's that, I think. Leslie, is there anything in particular you want to add, and or do we want to open up for, are we going to use the chat, and people, if they have a question, they just send it to you?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do, first of all, I want to apologize. We started at 100 participants and now we're at 194. So
Wow.
some of you were not able to get in initially. We're like our teachers, we're learning and growing and trying new things. Please know that this is videotaped. So if you came in the middle or at the beginning or later on, that we will have this ready for public so you can see the whole thing. And then what we'll do is, for right now, just based on the number of participants, I'll read the chat questions to Craig to the best of my ability. And then, like Craig said, what we can't get to between now and our 11 o'clock end time, we'll meet with you next week and work on responses as a group.
And
So-
lastly, it's also true, I think we talked about anything that gets in chat that we don't do today, we can probably respond more immediately through a Q&A or something where we post those questions and we'll answer them in written form.
Right.
And I'll just put a personal note to anybody who wants to just send me an email as well. I'm happy to either respond by email or have a phone chat if you like. So don't feel like we're trying to rush through this. It's simply we only have till 11 today, and we're happy to answer questions going forward.
Right, right. So one of the comments is a feeling that the 15-minute daily meet and greet is too short with a teacher. And why aren't we equipping our teachers to work from home? The current mode where they have a plan for the day leaves parents feeling a little bit stretched. And kids are not necessarily focused all day like they are in a classroom when they're actually living and learning on a school campus.
Yeah, that, I mean, I hear that, and I agree with it. That is something that we're talking about as a principal group, and we will bring that question back. I mentioned that is a common question we're getting already, and I sent that to the principals and to our assistant superintendent for educational services and her team. And so they are actually looking through all of those comments, and we will address it. What I would say is that that it isn't necessarily common that across the district, depending on grade and what age and whether students are able to do more work on their own versus others who need a little more oversight, et cetera, that we are trying to figure that out. And I think you will be seeing shifts as we move from, remember, our original thought was we were only getting through until basically end of this week, I think. Originally, it was April 3rd was the, I'm sorry, is that right? Yeah, April 3rd was the original date. And so now that we're shifting, I think people realize that we can't go all the way to the end of the school year or even to May 1 with a minimal amount of that kind of interaction. So we're going to be working on that. I do promise you that.
Right. And I think another comment that came in after that, you addressed most of the question, but there's a question about just that need or an expression of need for kids to be able to see their peers on video.
Yeah.
And so, just the hope that as we're moving through this journey, that those kinds of things or opportunities are added.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. And some of the clips I've seen from schools that have been doing that, where the teachers have done some really interesting and engaging interactive activity using an online format, it's really heartwarming. It's fabulous to see that in action and that you can create that. And so we're learning as we go, and we will work on that going forward.
Questions about how this impacts our ADA, our attendance, how we're accounting for attendance and our funding. And then also, do we think that this will potentially impact the last day of school?
Okay, in terms of ADA, all indications are that part will get forgiven, and I don't think we will lose ADA per se. There are certain things that we are spending quite a bit more on, whether it's related to our food service program or whether it's just additional cleaning and all sorts of things that we have to do that we've been told to keep a good record of that and that we get to request reimbursement. But I can't come close to telling our community how many different ways that this is going to affect our budget, but it won't be on the ADA side. Because thankfully we need that ADA to pay for our commitments that we already have, right? Not the changes that we're having to make, the additional computers, the additional whatever to do distance learning. There will be a cost to us for sure, and we don't know yet what that total cost will be, let alone what percentage of that will get reimbursed by the state.
Right. There's some
Oh,
kudos.
what was the last part about it? I didn't quite understand the one about the last day.
Yeah, how will this this digital learning that we're taking part in right now potentially affect the last day of school? Do we think that we'll have an extended school year? Do you think we're going to end up the same end date?
Yeah, at this point, my assumption is it is the same end date, and I have no way of knowing whether that will be in person or that will be still being done remotely. The ability to extend the year in some way to try and make up for some time lost here it's just such a big, huge matter that I can't respond to yet, because I'll need to know a lot more from both the County Office of Education, but the State Department of Education on what that might look like. So I just can't answer that just yet, but it's on our mind, and I know it's on your mind, community. So we'll work on that, and hopefully maybe we'll have a little to say next Tuesday when we do this again.
Okay. Some kudos popping up to schools.
Oh, let's hear those.
I know, Stevens Creek, 4th grade's doing great. They've done everything that you were talking about, Craig. So that's exciting.
Great.
And as I read this, I know that there's many other, our teachers are working so tirelessly on just setting up a learning environment for kids.
Yeah.
There's some comments about different school districts that are doing some digital learning, interactive digital learning that, our Ed Services team can, as we're supporting sites and teachers, we can look at some of those other models, which is exciting. There's comments about the need for balance, and that parents, don't really want their kids sitting in front of a computer from 9 to 3. And so it would be great if teachers make sure that they're encouraging kids to take breaks, to do some things that get themselves outside and moving. Set schedules are needed. The one comment is most of the teachers, the comment is most teachers have their videos off potentially, and having the videos on will help kids maybe not feel as isolated, which I think you've addressed. There's someone that missed the conversation about assessments and math placement for middle school. So do you want to just restate what you had said about that's, we're talking about it and more to come? Yeah,
just definitely that is those are the assessments, grades, and math placement as a grouping came from a lot of parents, and my earlier comment was that we're not quite ready to address it. We are. I know this afternoon, in fact, I know the middle school principals are meeting to talk about all of those things, and so hopefully we'll have thoughts by next week's version of this that we do, and just can't quite answer it yet. So please, a little more patience on it. I know some of you are anxious about it, and we will definitely work on that.
Right. Question or concern about students with special needs, and the fear from a parent that the support may have been slow to start, and there's a concern about students regressing, and so what are we doing in that area, or what can they expect to be provided in the near future?
Okay, so all I can say to that is that our special education department has been working tirelessly to figure out that that plan going forward. And first of all, we will be meeting the needs of our special needs students along with all of our students, and we absolutely will continue with our plans to provide an appropriate education for all of our students, including special needs students. And so please, 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 if you are wondering about that, reach out to your school's principal and talk to them about that, or write to me and I'll make sure to connect you directly with someone from our education department to talk to you about that. I mentioned this earlier on. That's one of the ones that is really hard for me to address with everybody here, because we have to address the specific IEP or specific needs that children have, or children on a 504 plan, et cetera. So please reach out to that principal and talk to them about that.
A lot of the things that are coming in are suggestions from parents. And so I'll reiterate that I might not read all of your suggestions, but we will download the chat and certainly take the suggestions that are coming in. There are continue to be feelings or sentiments about teachers really needing to be able to check in with kids on how they're feeling. And so encouraging some of those activities, the social emotional learning activities in the classroom.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
I just want everybody to know that this is something we talk about a lot, and we are going to be pushing going forward. That is just so important. And again, I don't want it to sound like all over the district teachers are somehow not connecting with kids. They are. I've seen some beautiful, amazing, fantastic things going on, and not just some, a lot. And so I don't want people thinking that's necessarily common. Teachers know and want kids to have experiences that with each other, with the teacher, a connection. In the end, so much of learning, especially for younger kids, but really for all kids, is social. It is connection. And so we will continue to improve in that area, I am certain.
Are the teachers considering videotaping themselves doing lessons and then pushing it out either through Seesaw or Google Classroom?
Yes, a lot of teachers are doing that right now, and will continue to do that. And I think the important thing is that because that's so one-directional, we want to make sure that that doesn't become the main mode of everything, that it's a video and then that's the instruction and then the kids are on their own doing assignments all day, where we want to make sure that's not what the experience, especially if it means the kids in front of a computer all day long. I think we all agree that that's just not what we want for our children right now.
Right. What do we do if we feel that the teacher that my child has isn't checking in with my kids or the kids? And they're not getting that digital online instruction opportunity. And I think you mentioned that earlier, but maybe to reiterate, what's the first step for parents?
Yeah, I mean, please reach out to the teacher, have a conversation and ask about that. And or if you're more comfortable talking to a principal, that's okay, call that principal. But right now, because of what I know about our hundreds and hundreds of classrooms that we have in the district, a lot of the things that people are asking for are actually happening. And so if it's not happening for you, I know your teacher would want to hear from you and to talk to you about that. And so please just reach out, have that conversation, because I know that can get worked out at the school level.
And I think this sort of tags along with that one, is that rather than online resources, are there textbooks available, other than, there's Go Math in the elementary school grades. And I think I would reiterate that if you're feeling like the screen time is too much, is to reach out to the teacher to see what other paper product resources are available.
Yeah, and that I will say, add to that we had a couple comments about that sent to us, and those I did put in the category of, well, yes, anybody who is struggling with internet connection or wants to have paper versions of hard copies of things, you can arrange for that through your school site. And a lot of the schools have been providing that for people who need it. So if that's something you want, please talk to the principal or teacher about it.
Right. Questions about CASP testing, which would typically start after spring break.
Right. Yeah, although, yeah. Or as early as next week.
Or as early as
next
next
week.
week.
I think is when we were supposed to have it. But yeah, the state has made it clear that there will not be CASP testing this year. So that will not happen. But the lack of it will not have a negative impact, and everybody's aware of this. And just like with grades and assessments in general, how are we going to do that? We're going to find a way to make sure there is just no harm to a child's or a student's trajectory in school or anything. We are working on those plans, and we're not concerned about having a year in which we don't do statewide testing, which is more, by the way, summative information that isn't used to actually change instruction the next day, right? It's a 1 year comparison in some way. It does not affect kids once they get to high school or beyond. It doesn't have an impact. We have used CASP as part of a decision about math placement. And so that we have to tackle and figure out, well, what are we doing instead? But there are other options, and we're working on that. As I said, even today, I know the middle school principals are looking at that.
Right. Couple comments from parents of 8th grade students who are, I think, speaking for their kiddos, who are sad about potentially losing a graduation opportunity or a ceremony opportunity or Great America. And have we started doing any thinking around, if we're still in the same situation at the end of the year, ways that we can support a proper send-off from grade to grade?
Yes, and we're definitely thinking about it. I think some of us are hopeful that there is that slight chance that maybe even if we don't open all year, is there something we get to do by that second week of June somehow? And so I think we're kind of not wanting to let go of that possibility at this time. At the same time, yeah, we are talking about whether it's something special on a per school basis. We certainly aren't going to do the large graduation that we had planned at, was it Flint Center? No, where were we going this year? I don't remember.
Downtown San Jose at the
yeah.
Performing Arts Center,
Right.
I believe.
Yeah, so that's just not, that just isn't going to happen. We're not going to be able to do that. We know that, but we will be planning for what does it look like for our 8th graders. We know it really is disappointing. We received that fabulous video from the leadership group, student group at Lawson, which was really heartwarming to see, and them talking about all the things they are missing and will miss. And we hear it, and we'd love to be able to do something special. We just don't know what that is yet.
Right. Just a reminder for us as a district to be mindful that not all teachers, not all families necessarily have that strong internet connection to do Google Meets. And so, for our parents, we just, the balancing of work and home and internet use needs to be something in our minds as a district as we're doing digital learning. Still questions that are coming up about not sure why our teachers aren't conducting virtual classrooms, which I think you've addressed. A big thanks to all of us for all that we're doing. Can teachers
let me just, I'm sorry, let me interrupt just a sec. So I do think that when people ask that question about what we're doing for a virtual learning experience, it's such a wide range of possibilities. So I don't want to discount what people are asking for. And I do think that for some families, and depending on the class and the teacher, people are absolutely fine with the kind of what they're calling a virtual learning experience, and it feels balanced, the right amount of downtime and work time and of assignment versus interaction with teacher or with kids, et cetera. And others who feel that when they're talking about a virtual online experience, they mean all day long the teacher is on Zoom or on Google Hangout, and you're running it like a classroom all day. And that is one where it is just, I have to explain to people that that is such an impossible task at this moment in time, all day long, to provide that classroom experience in the way we'd like to. Now, it doesn't mean we can't do more interaction. It doesn't mean there aren't powerful ways of doing what we're doing, but to have the idea that it's all day long like that with teachers who, by the way, are also in the same situation of taking care of their kids and having to do what they have to do. So they have to have a way to figure out how to make it work. And yes, I agree that for the classes that have been, the comments I've heard of people saying, but all my child gets is 15 minutes in the morning and that's it for the rest of the day. No, that's not going to be okay. We're going to work on that. That doesn't make sense. But I just don't want to give the impression that teachers are going to be online from 8:30 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, running a classroom the way they have been running a classroom. It's just, even the high schools know for the older kids, they can't make that happen. And it would be easier for them to do it actually than for others, but it's just for all sorts of complicated reasons, that's not going to work.
Right. English language learners, are there some additional resources or tools that we can provide for our English language learners so that they continue to gain in their skills? And is that something that we could do for them specifically?
Yeah, yes, I think there are. Sorry, Allison, I don't know, do we want to give Allison a chance? This is our assistant superintendent for educational services. Allison, do you want to talk about our English language learner students?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yes, we do actually have a new tool that we had been trying out in a pilot setting that is now available for all of our English learners. It's called Imagine Learning. And so we've been getting that message out there to our teachers through principals. So it is new to everyone, but we are excited about making that available for our students. We've had some great feedback during piloting, and so we're pleased to be able to expand that during this time. And also, we are talking about different ways that teachers are able to provide small group lessons, and some teachers are already doing that. So keeping that conversation at the forefront around how we're supporting our English learners is something that is in progress. And we have our next check-in with principals tomorrow. So we'll be circling back to that then as well. Just like when kids are in the classroom, we are required to provide those check-ins through what we call designated ELD time for English learners. And so I know this is something that's ramping up with our teachers and everybody's finding their way, but it definitely has been a part of the conversation and will continue to be.
Great, thanks, Allison. All right.
Another-
Leslie, I note that we're about 4 minutes away here, maybe 2 or 3 more. And I also note that we're close to 100 different chat comments in here. So clearly we're not getting to all of them, but let's do a few more and then we will take it on. Any questions that aren't answered, we'll find a way to post somewhere, somehow, written response and or address it next Tuesday when we do this again.
Yeah, so one of the questions was in regard to resources like online books or library materials. And so it was interesting, Jean, one of our actually library resource, or our library media clerks, has said, maybe they as a group can come up with some book recommendations for kids. So that might be something that we can look at district-wide. Questions about Google Hangout and why not Zoom. Some of whom are still not hanging out or with any of their teachers. So I know that they're supposed to go reach out to the teacher and principal so that we can make sure we get traction there.
Right, and just in case people came in late, I do want to reiterate that we are looking at whether we can utilize Zoom more for classroom, because there are some elegant aspects to Zoom that we'd love to use, but we're not going to do that until we have ensured the safety of our students in terms of online presence, and there are still some questions on it. We would love to be able to use it, and hopefully we'll get there, but right now we're not convinced that we can 100% protect our kids.
Yep. And then I think, I'm going to end on a high note, a shout out to Mr. Wall, Brandon Wall, who did his, the Loss in Leadership video. We've got teachers at Collins who have started their video conferencing. And so again, it's that, recognizing the great work that our staff is doing. And there's a lot of comments that are just reaching out to schools and teachers for everything that they're doing and trying and experimenting with. And at that, Craig, we're at 10:59, so maybe your closing comments.
Oh boy, closing comments. I didn't prepare any.
On the spot.
Yeah. No, I didn't prepare any of those. First of all, this is an amazing community. All the parents out there, you have been extremely supportive, and I hear those of you that are just concerned about what does this mean for the long haul, for the rest of the year. I want to say there's a part of me, because our district has put in its strategic plan the notion of personalizing learning. I do believe there is a silver lining to being forced in the way we are right now to think about effective use of technology that may well help us for the long haul. After we're not sheltered in place and we get to be together in person, have those personalized learning experience together, that we will also have learned something about how we can shift our teaching and learning practices in some way that actually will benefit all of us in the end. I have to thank everybody for each and every one of you for your patience. I know this is not easy. These are extraordinary times. I'm, about to finish up my 41st year doing this, and I have never experienced anything quite like this, and I don't believe any of us has, honestly. So thank you for being our partners, helping us figure it out together. We are here. Any question you have right now, whether it's posted or not, you can probably get an answer to that by talking with either your child's teacher or the principal at your school site. They are ready to do that and engage with you. So please do not hesitate to do that. And as I said before, my door is always open. Well, virtual door. You're not allowed in my house right now, but virtually I am available. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, please. All right, have a great rest of the week, and I'll look forward to next week's engagement. Thank you, everybody.